Welcome to this new episode of our series on Ocean Networks Canada, Surfacing Secrets, Explore the Ocean, Understand the Planet. And today, Arts and Ocean Science. During the show, we explore a different kind of expedition. One that dives not into the depths of the sea, but into the shared currents between art and science. What happens when creativity meets data? When an artist, a theater director, and a connector decide to speak the same language of curiosity. Today we follow three remarkable journeys that begins in distant places, Iran, the Philippines, and Colorado, and converge on Vancouver Island at Ocean Networks Canada. One of our guests today is Dwight Owens, Impact and Capacity Development Manager with Ocean Networks Canada, who helped establish the ONC Art Science Fellowship Program with the University of Victoria's Faculties of Fine Arts and of Science. This program builds bridges between creativity and ocean science research. Our guests are current and past recipients of that ONC Art Science Fellowship Award, previously known as ONC Artist in Residence. Parvin Hassani, an interdisciplinary sculptor from Iran, whose work transforms memory and marine science into living art. And Dennis Guppa, a Filipino theater director whose performances bring climate change and ocean stories to life. Together, they show how curiosity flows across cultures, disciplines, and oceans, revealing that science and art are not opposites, but reflections of the same human wonder. So let's begin this voyage across imagination and inquiry and discover how connection itself can become a work of art. Curiosity moves like water. It begins deep inside the brain, a pulse, an electrical wave, and somehow ends up shaping the world around us. Our first story begins in Iran with the 2025 ONC Art Science Fellow Parvin, where water is scarce and imagination flows on the ground.
I'm Parvin Hassani. I'm an Iranian interdisciplinary artist. I moved to Canada in September 2023 for my master's degree. I was born near the sea. I wasn't born in Tehran. So I had much more connection to the sea. I spent all of my life near the sea. And when I moved to Tehran, I was about 18 years old. So I think the connection with water is really strong with my work. And actually, as Iran has very dry climate, we have lots of kind of different activities related to the water. And it really inspired during my master degree here for my thesis. So water is really important part of my work.
Parvin's hands were her first research tools. Before she studied science, she studied texture, learning how thought can travel through matter.
As I can remember, I just paint. I was a child that all the time drawing, painting. But later, I started work with different materials. When I started working with the materials, we experienced working with clay and paper mache. And all of those materials that I had to work with my hands really inspired me that I'm thinking through my hands. So it inspired me to pursue my degree in sculpture. And I think it became kind of my language. Actually, I wanted to be a sculptor at first.
Okay.
And then I shifted to work with other medium as well. But sculpture is my main medium. But later, especially in second year and third year, it was kind of entry point to know more about the contemporary approach. And I was learning about the bio-art. It was really interesting that one of my professors told me about the bio-art and in the intersection of art and biology.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fascinated with that idea that, we can work with scientists as well, or we can work with scientific data. It was the turning point in my practice, yeah.
Bioart is where laboratories meets art studio. Instead of pigment, artists use living matter, bacteria, cells, DNA, to explore how life and technology intertwine. It asks the same questions science does, but through emotions and form.
I started my practice about the memory and the brain and neural network. So I spend most of my time about the theme of memory and the neural network and working about the memory and how it will shape in the brain. The first time that I started thinking about the theme of memory in the brain, I didn't know that what aspect of it is more interesting for me. I just tried to learn more about the function of memory in the brain, how it can be possible to store the memory in the brain. And when I learned about neural network and how all of the synapses and how all of those connections work together to create what we call memory, something clicked for me that everything is about the connection. And when I thought about later, when I thought about the ocean, I think I brought that perspective with myself because the network was really interesting for me. The connection was really interesting for me. And when I thought about the ocean as a hidden landscape, and I thought that the brain and the ocean, both of them, they are a complex system, and they have the hidden world. So I tried to kind of discover those hidden worlds and make some connection between these.
The brain holds about 86 billion neurons. Each one connects to thousands of others, forming a web more complex than any galaxy we know. Scientists call it a neural network. Parvin calls it a landscape. When she arrived in Canada, that landscape expanded from the brain to the ocean floor.
We had spoken a lot about hydrothermal vents, which was the central point of my practice. I think it really changed the way that I'm thinking about the material of my work, about how can I expand the idea of the non-human memory also, because all of the time my practice was about the human memory. But during my fellowship, I focused on the non-human memory in deep ocean, which was really fascinating.
Hydrothermal vents are chimneys on the ocean floor, formed where seawater seeps into the Earth's crust, heats up to almost 400 degrees, and rises again carrying minerals. When that superheated water hits the cold ocean, it builds towers, black smokers, then breathe, collapse, and rebuild. Each layer records the story of heat, pressure, and time, a geological memory.
I remember that for the first time that I saw the video of hydrothermal vent, I felt like they're like bodily archive of living system. So I think that they are alive because they rise, they breathe the minerals to the ocean, they collapse and they change over time. And it's the powerful aspect of those structures. They are like chimneys, but I think they're alive. So the participation of the minerals, it creates very tall chimneys. So the layering of those minerals, it's really related to the memory. It's not separate maybe of our memory.
Right.
Maybe we cannot see the chimneys in our brain, but we can see it in the brain, in the ocean.
Parvin began to explore how memory flows through neurons, through water, through metal.
Actually, it was really hard for me.
Yeah.
especially for one of the techniques about the electroetching. It was a bit scientific, and I haven't worked with electricity or something like this before.
Oh, okay.
I had maybe about 2 weeks trial and error to fix some of the problems, because it was my first time to get the tools and work with the electricity. And it was challenging, but I knew that I have to fix it because I wanted to make this work.
Right.
It took time, but I could solve it.
Electric engraving, or electro-etching, works by immersing metal in a conductive solution and passing current through it. Ion move, patterns appear, and chemistry becomes design. It is sculpture by electricity, a collaboration between artist and physics. In Iran, Parvin's ancestors built vast underground canals called qanats, tunnels that carried water for thousands of years. She began to see those tunnels as metaphors for memory too, networks that connect, adapt, and survive. Parvin's goal was to find the right material for each idea, sometimes clay, sometimes metal, sometimes electricity. The material itself told her what memory can look like.
So for my master degree at the University of Victoria, I focused on the idea of the water management system in Iran. The form of those water management system, it was thousands of shafts and tunnels, which all of them inspired me to creating kind of infrastructures related to the memory. So all of those forms led me to think about how can I make the place for the memory. That place for the memory, it was kind of tunnel shape that can be create a space for flowing the memory, because for me, memory is not kind of the fixed things. It can be changed, it can be constructed during the time.
From clay to neurons, from qanats to hydrothermal chimneys, Parvin's art became a map of invisible worlds. Each connection she traced between mind and matter, between science and sculpture, was one more proof that curiosity flows across every boundary. When water turns violent, it writes its own stories. In November 2013, one of the most powerful tropical cyclones ever recorded, Typhoon Haiyan, or Yolanda, struck the Philippines. Winds over 300 kilometers per hour, waves higher than houses. For a young theater director named Dennis Guppa, it was more than a news headline. It was home.
I'm Dennis Guppa. I'm a theater director. I came to Canada in 2013 because I wanted to go deep with my craft as a theater director. Before going to Canada, I'm a faculty member also here in the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, where I'm currently a visiting research fellow. So, yeah, and in 2013, just my life just changed. Things just opened up. I went to University of British Columbia for my master's degree, MFA in directing. I came September. 2 months after that, it was November. I was busy rehearsing, and there was a typhoon that hit the Philippines. One of my teachers, my mentor, said, "You have to come to my office because I'm going to tell you something." So I went. I stopped my preparation for my rehearsal. And she told me there was a big typhoon. And I told her, no, it's okay. Typhoons are like, it's okay. We're used to it. And she said, it's different. Look at the photos. So I was quite stunned with the enormity of the typhoon. It was called Typhoon Yolanda or Haiyan. The images were really like shocking, extremely shocking. Never saw any of that magnitude. So the Pacific Ocean formed like a tsunami and went to the communities, and it raped the whole community in its bare bone, its decimated image of the communities.
Wow.
And the province is where my father came from.
Haiyan killed more than 6,000 people, displaced 4 million, and left behind a silence that no theater could fill.
And I started getting calls from my father, and they said that, my father said that they can find their relatives.
Before Haiyan, Dennis's work was all performance, gesture, rehearsal. After Haiyan, art had to mean survival.
but I continued my MFA, and there was also a kind of a rapture that happened inside of me, like asking, what is this art got to do with my country that's suffering from the intensity of this weather events? What is this all about? So I continued my inquiry. I had to chase some kind of an answer and confront the truth that we will continue to face these kinds of tragedy. So I went to University of Victoria and I found a program called Applied Theater with an inquiry of combining theater, climate change, and also indigenous ecological knowledge. So I wanted to investigate how indigenous ecological knowledge can also participate in the dialogue or the remaking of the world.
Applied theater uses performance as a social experiment, bringing community together to act, to retell their stories, to process trauma. And Dennis found that both in Canada and the Philippines, colonial history and environmental injustices echoed each other. The same storms, the same silence.
It was so clear to me that I had to be part of a community. I had to be part of a certain, advocacy that's committed to social transformation. So expanding the networks of not just professional networks, but the networks of solidarity and the need to be part of a building of a community so that you become stronger. Because I'm also a migrant. When I came to Canada, I realized that I'm other. I'm a person of color. I am a person that keeps on translating myself to people, right? So I had to be part of a community that will allow me to mitigate that kind of translation.
That search for community eventually led him to Ocean Networks Canada and to a certain connector named Dwight Owens.
It was pandemic. Not yet. Before pandemic, I think when I applied. Okay, so because the dissertation that I was doing was highly interdisciplinary. Because I've been engaging with anthropologists and learning many things about climate scientists, and I don't know how to handle the data. I'm also receiving a lot of stories from the communities that I was working back in my father's province. So there's this artist residency that ONC offered, and I applied. My thought would be maybe I could learn about scientists, learn skill on being a steward of these knowledges.
And what began as a residency in 2021 became a laboratory for empathy and the seed of a performance called Gossip with Whales.
The initial project was to stage a performance with the immigrants community in Victoria. There was a pandemic, so we migrated into Zoom. And one of the former deans of the University of the Philippines saw it and said, let's bring this to the Philippines and recreate. And now we're having a new iteration of Gossip with Whales. The 4 songs are still there. We added one more composition, and there's poetry now, there's choreography. There are 5 scientists who are coming together, weaving in and out to the story to be as part of the storytelling of this new production.
Whales communicate through low-frequency sounds that can travel more than 1,000 kilometers. They don't shout, they resonate. Dennis's work did the same. Voices of artists, scientists, and migrants finding each other across distance.
Well, part of it is the history of my embodied. Early on, I saw a pantomime group in our village, and I was taken by the power of real commitment to express beyond, oral language. It's a traditional country where we rely on oral expression. It's devoid of language and they're almost dancing. It's an international group as well. So eventually I've realized that this is something that I really would like to develop in me, this kind of craft of expressivity. And then several years after, I saw a filmmaker also went to our community, and now he's a national artist for film, Ismael Bernal. And I saw the leadership of this director, and this community is really busy and dense and crowded. So when he commanded them to be quiet, they became quiet. And I said, maybe I'm attracted also in this kind of leadership.
From pantomime to cinema to Zoom calls with scientists, Dennis kept experimenting with language and silence.
There's this anthropologist, a feminist anthropologist and geographer, Kia Ocampo Go, and she said that disasters are like weathers. It's an everyday thing in the Philippines, and you have no other choice but to be confronted by the violence of the weathers, the extreme weathers events in the Philippines.
In that refusal, that act of imagining otherwise, art and science meet. Dennis calls it theater. Dwight calls it research, but really it's the same pursuit, making sense of chaos through connection.
I always tell my students that my migration to Canada is also a migration of search for my own craft. It was also confronting the truth about climate justice and climate injustice in the Philippines because I really wanted to interrogate my artistic practice and artistic method and the philosophy behind the philosophy behind art and its relevance. And then, and I started writing about climate change and applied theater and indigenous ecological knowledge. And I realized that, engaging with art, we should not stop with aesthetic. Also the politics that you can shape and forge, and the voice and the agency that you could discover and extend it to the people and the communities that you would like to work on. It's very interdisciplinary work. So we have this faculty members coming to my class, engaging the students to think about the climate change and the science behind it. And then we recreate that kind of experience of listening to the data and receiving the data into more performative way.
Data performed, science felt. Through Dennis, the storm became choreography, not destruction, but dialogue. And somewhere in that dialogue, art and science found their common script: curiosity. Every current needs a channel. At Ocean Networks Canada, that channel turned out to be a man who says he isn't an artist and isn't really a scientist either.
Well, I'm not an artist and I'm not a scientist.
Okay. It's a good start. I like it.
I'm kind of a nothingist. Yeah, when I was in school way back when, I did really enjoy arts, fine arts. I took some fine art classes and I liked that. I enjoyed science too, took science classes, but I ended up being more interested in language. And, I studied different languages and ended up going to Taiwan to learn Chinese. And so I did that. And then, the job I got after undergrad was working as a waiter in a Chinese restaurant. And I thought, well, what do I really want to do? So I just started doing some explorations and, asking people, doing interviews and just trying to see what might click. And I remembered back when I was in Taiwan, I used to teach English just as a side gig. And I would invent these games on the chalkboard where we would draw stuff and write stuff, and it was for learning language, and I would engage the students, and we would kind of like on the spot, we would create some kind of thing that they learned from. And I thought that was really fun and interesting. And so that bit by bit, it led me to learn about an area called instructional design or educational technology.
Instructional design, part psychology, part art. A field that studies how people learn best, how information becomes understanding. It's the same question scientists ask when they design an experiment, and the same question artists ask when they design emotion.
Oh, cool.
So one day I went to just do an informational interview with a professor at the University of Colorado, Denver, and just to ask him, what is this instructional design stuff? And what's your program like and all this? And he said, well, if you want to join my program, I'll give you a job. Okay. So I ended up going to that program. And that was pre-Google. I'm that old.
After a decade designing training for weather forecasters, teaching about hurricanes, typhoons, and tornadoes, Dwight moved to Canada. He joined a small project called Neptune.
So I was just looking around and I found a job advertised for web content manager at a little project called Neptune, the Northeast Pacific time series, underwater, networked, something. Experiment, I guess. I don't know.
The Northeast Pacific Time Series Underwater Networked Experiment.
And our chief scientist was Kim Juniper. And I, at one point, I had a desk right outside of his office. And one day he came up to me, he said, oh, we're thinking of starting up an artist in residence program. Would you like to help? And I said, yeah, sure, I'd be glad to help. And so that's kind of what happened. He let me do the coordination, and he was the visionary.
We should pause here to honor the man who helped imagine this very bridge. Dr. Kim Juniper, Chief Scientist at Ocean Networks Canada and Professor at the University of Victoria, was a visionary in ocean science whose work stretched from deep sea. Under his leadership, ONC's observatories expanded across the Pacific, Atlantic, and Arctic, and he championed the idea that science must listen to art and to indigenous knowledge in equal measure. His legacy lives in every cable, every artist, every scientist who dares to listen across disciplines. That small idea to let artists work alongside with scientists became the ONC Art Science Fellowship. At first, the plan was simple: invite one graduate student a year, give them a desk, and let curiosity do the rest.
Yeah, our first artist, Dennis was our second, and our first, I was much more hands-off and letting him explore, and just trying to provide support for that. And then when Dennis came, we had COVID. So everybody was working from home. There were lockdowns. And, Dennis came with this great concept, but it got blown up by he had to redesign everything.
Yeah.
And
that's a challenge.
so, we had to try to figure out how to work through that. But over time, what I've come to is it's really important to bring our artists in residence, now we're calling them fellows, bring them into the organization, embed them in a team, let them be part of the culture, bring them into meetings, let them really be exposed to things. And that will stir up a lot for them and help them.
And the idea worked. When ONC opened its door, people like Dennis and later Parvin brought in perspectives no lab instrument could measure.
I thought it was interesting that both Parvin and Dennis talked about seeing themselves in this new country as an artist and from this kind of new perspective. And so maybe this is another kind of way to help these artists to gain new perspective on themselves and their work and their questions.
ONC's observatories stretch more than 800 kilometers across the Pacific seafloor, a real neural network of sensors. Dwight's fellowship became its human counterpart, connecting brains, cultures, and ideas.
We recruit, we offer this fellowship to grad students at the University of Victoria, and it's a 4-month fellowship program. We provide a stipend. We bring them into our organization, and we invite them to be embedded with one of our teams, come to the regular staff meetings, join other meetings, learn about the science, learn about the technology, go visit our Marine Technology Center, just kind of get embedded and involved and let the organizational activity seep into their outlook and their view. Then they're free to create something, work with others, or work on their own and develop their own practice. So they may spend time at ONC or in a studio or going back and forth. Parvin's been doing that. And when it was Dennis's turn, he worked remote because it was COVID.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just trying to bring them in to help them understand and also to bring that kind of, arts point of view to the science groups. They may be able to ask questions in a different way and think about things in new ways.
For ONC, it's not about decoration, it's about translation. Artists ask different questions, the kind that don't always fit into spreadsheets, and that can shift the whole conversation.
It's really about curiosity. That is key for the scientist, but also for the artist. They're trying to understand, and they're trying to understand how we relate to things and how we can really express and communicate. So curiosity is a shared language.
Curiosity isn't just a feeling, it's measurable. Studies from the national academies show that interdisciplinary teams, when art and science truly collaborate, are 40% more likely to generate new ideas or breakthrough. At ONC, curiosity became policy.
You mentioned I'm a connector, and I did take the strengths-based, or whatever that test is, looking at your strengths.
He's talking about the Clifton Strength Test. That one that tells you what makes you tick instead of what's wrong with you. One of those strengths is connectedness. Basically, the superpower of seeing how everyone and everything fits together. And clearly, our guest had that one nailed, turning random encounter into collaboration and making 1 + 1 equal, way more than 2.
And connection was one of the top strengths for me. So
there we go.
That's really what I like to do is bring people together.
Dwight's strength is connection. Kim Juniper's was vision. Together, they built a bridge sturdy enough for people like Dennis and Parvin to cross and wide enough for science itself to expand.
ONC is quite international. We have people from Philippines on staff. We have people from Iran and many, many countries. So that's just
awesome.
Part of, built into our culture.
From weather maps to marine cables, from Manila to Tehran to Victoria, every story in this episode runs through the same thread, connection. But connection isn't always comfortable. It requires letting go of certainty and stepping into the unknown. In the deep ocean and in discovery, light only reaches so far. Beyond it, you have to rely on instinct or curiosity. That's where the three of them meet: the artist, the storyteller, and the connector, each chasing questions that can't be answered alone.
When we engage with art science, it's not just about communicating the themes of science, but also communicating the themes of art and really
Right.
propelling both powers so that you have one connecting power.
Dennis calls it blurring the boundaries. In research terms, it's a transdisciplinary approach, knowledge created between, across, and beyond disciplines.
Two disciplines coming together, blurring it, and really navigating the in-betweenness of these two worlds.
Scientists call these wicked problems, issues too complex for one method or one mind. Climate change, biodiversity loss, human migrations, problems that keep looping back because they're made of everything at once. You don't solve wicked problems, you learn to transform them.
You know, what I realized during that residency is the lesson of humility. Both artists and scientists you are confronted with big questions and maybe you can't answer them. Like climate change, like how do we really confront this? Like, that's why we have to collaborate.
Right.
Because I can't answer it.
Yeah.
Humility becomes method. The humility to say, I don't know, let's find out together.
It was my first time to collaborate with the scientists. I didn't have a chance to work with scientists during my bachelor for the bioart, but this time it was really surprising for me when I had sessions and meeting with the scientists and when I talked with them and I saw that how much we have in common in our conversation. And it opened up a lot of, I think, new insight for me for my future project as well.
It was all very mysterious to me.
Okay.
Because Dennis would go off and then he'd come back, he'd say, oh, well, we have a string ensemble that we're working with. Or, oh, we have a poet. Actually, it started with a poet who was writing tanagas. And I had no idea what tanagas were. And I thought, okay.
A tanaga is a traditional Filipino poem. 4 lines, 7 syllables each. No title, no explanation. You have to fit the whole story, emotion, rhythm, lesson into 28 syllables, like a scientific formula written in verse.
Simoy ng hangin, ika'y diringgin o ika'y tatamuhin. Binibini ko sa puno't dulo, sa'yo lang ang pusong to. Munting bulaklak, sa'yo'y natinag sa gandang makamandag.
Later, I actually tried to write some tanagas because I was inspired about this.
Nice.
And so then the tanagas, somehow he had this mysterious process with the composer and the lyricist and I don't know all the people he was working with. And to me, it was very mysterious because we were all separated. I was working from home. And in fact, the whole gossip was with Wales. Everyone was in their own homes.
Right.
And it all got combined together.
Parvin's mystery was different, made of metal and electricity instead of words.
And I would say I feel that same sense of mysterious curiosity about Parvin's work. We'll have our weekly meetings, and I'll say, oh, Parvin, is there something you want to share? And then she'll pop up on the screen these latest things and talk about these experiments that she's done and these new materials. And, it's a very, very kind of like an alchemistic process. So it's within the curiosity, within the mystery, these layers.
There's very interesting aspect of working with material, especially as a person who creates a sculpture, is that I'm not stick to a specific material. I try to get the new idea and spend time with the idea and realize that which material can be fit and can be engaging with that idea to release what's behind the concept. So what I did during my residency was that I spent time with the meetings, with the scientists, and with all of the samples, footages, images, and I tried to collect all of those data and spend time indulged with them, and then select which part can be, which material can be fit with that concept.
In the lab, in the studio, the method is the same. Experiment, fail, observe, repeat. That's where the conversation between art and science becomes indistinguishable.
I am so generously gifted by the intelligences and the expertise of these people. Because I know that when we engage with interdisciplinary work, it's a scary thing, right? And
Right.
there are certain gaps that I really don't know what I'm doing here. But, the scientists, because they're very solid with their practice and they're willing to share their method also. And I realize, oh, wow, we overlap with the same method. It is highly collaborative. It's an intellectual, both artistic endeavor and scientific endeavors are very intellectual in nature.
Curiosity again, the one element they all share. It drives the sculptor's experiments, the director's performances, and the connector's programs.
ONC, I remember ONC is always responsive and always giving to our lostness, because I'm also all kind of lost.
That's the paradox of discovery. You move forward by getting lost, and sometimes the unknown is the only honest place to meet. Hydrothermal vents again, Parvin's favorite metaphor. Those chimneys of minerals breathing heat into the dark. They are unstable, constantly collapsing and reforming. In a way, so is collaboration. It's not fixed. It grows, breaks, rebuilds.
I think studying the structures of of those chimneys really helped me to think about how can I push the idea of just making the objects, especially when I had a series of meetings with the scientists and we spoke about the vents, not just as a specific point or just solid or separate chimneys. The scientists told me that it's a vast field and it was a magical point, the part of my project, because it helped me to think about how can I create a landscape? How can I create a site of these structures that the viewers can come and feel them in three-dimensional? So it was a very specific moment of my project because it helped me to create several fragmented pieces. And then I'm going to create a large installation of these pieces that later you can come and see, or I can send the pictures for the people who cannot see.
Scientists would call that a system view. Artists call it an experience. Either way, it's the same act, trying to make sense of something bigger than us.
What can art and science working together come up with in terms of, new ways of thinking about problems, maybe new ways of thinking about wicked problems, maybe new perspectives, and what can this synergy bring that will benefit not only the science, not only the art, but will benefit our society. And this is really what I've hoped for.
Hope, that rare mineral that keeps rising from the pressure of uncertainty. And just like the vents that breathe life into darkness, it needs heat to exist: curiosity, humility, and connection. After all the experiments and the storms, what remains? Maybe it's not the data or even the art itself, but the way people change when they start to listen to each other. At Ocean Networks Canada, curiosity doesn't end with discovery. It loops back into empathy.
When I was really starting with my career, I was just busy creating one project after another. I wanted long process. I want to really engage with my method. And I'm no longer binaristic about it. Like you rehearse and then you create the show. What if the process in itself is a show and my audience is my collaborators? We are also audience of our own work because we're learning from different disciplines. And then we become embodied and live with the things that we are. We are performing the lessons that we're getting from our process in our everyday life.
In that idea, life as a performance, Dennis found a truth shared by many traditional cultures.
In Bali, when I did my fellowship in Indonesia, the Balinese people, they don't have word for art because every day is an artistic work. So if you are a barber, you're probably a musician too. All right. So there's this kind of a lived experiences. My theory is colonialism really categorized everything.
Reconnection, not only of disciplines, but of our identities. It's the same current running through Parvin's work and Dwight's vision, to dissolve the borders that never really existed.
I found Owens very responsive about all of the questions, especially the question that I had. And I had a really great experience working with them because it helped me to expand my experiences and expand my horizon about how the art and science can intersect and how I can work in that intersection.
When Parvin talks about horizons, she doesn't just mean artistic ones. Her work turned data into texture, and in doing so, she reminded the scientists that emotion is also a kind of measurement.
Yeah, I just want them to, first of all, feel at home within our organization, find a landing place where they can feel like they belong, feel part of the team. And then, as Parvin said, and Dennis, bring your full curiosity and bring your questions, bring your ethics, bring your world changing, bring your big ideas that maybe we didn't think about because we were so stuck on the data management system and the technology. So you're going to be able to help us crack open some things that we didn't know we could. And so you're going to be an important part of that. So I want them to feel that they're really valuable and that they belong and what they're doing is really matters.
For Dwight, the goal was never art for art's sake. It was transformation. A network of cables under the sea and another made of people. Each connection adding resilience to the system.
There is a bigger task really for me, and that is the social pedagogy that comes along with it, the kind of a responsibility that we need to forge in, making things change. We have to make a breakthrough with climate injustice. It's a life commitment.
Art, science, and justice. 3 words rarely seen together, yet deeply entangled. Because the ocean doesn't separate us, it connects us. Its currents carry memory, plastic, heat, and hope.
And, try and see how different strengths of different people can even become greater through that synergy.
That synergy already exists in every conversation, every experiment, every question that refuses to stay in its lane. Interdisciplinary research is no longer a trend, it's a necessity. In the last decade, projects combining the arts and sciences have doubled worldwide, many focusing on climate change and social resilience. And perhaps that's what Juniper saw when he first asked Dwight to create this fellowship. That art and science are not opposites. They are complementary lenses on the same mystery.
I would say that bring a huge curiosity by yourself and open up a lot of questions.
I think this is an opportunity to make sense of your humanity as well, because you're working with people who have dedicated their lives into a particular field, going deep to the work. And I am amazed with a commitment of the scientists to provide a kind of a world making, right? Because when we think of science and arts, we're kind of separated. But somehow it echoes also to me that this kind of deep commitment to make things change, right? So I think that one should capture that desire for change and transformation. I saw that from working with Juniper and Dwight, and such a beautiful theater to observe that kind of commitment to their craft.
Different languages, clay and code, movement and math, poetry and pressure. Yet all of them speak curiosity. In the end, that's what connects Tehran, Manila, Colorado, and Vancouver Island. The belief that creativity, whether in a lab or a studio, can make us see the planet and each other more clearly. From neurons to tsunamis, from hydrothermal vents to human hearts, curiosity connects it all. It's what keeps the water moving, what keeps us asking questions, what keeps us alive. As we close this episode, a heartfelt thank you to our three guests, Parvin Hassani, Dennis Guppa, and Dwight Owens, for opening the doors between arts and sciences and reminding us that curiosity is the bridge that connects every discipline, every culture, and every story. Their journeys from Tehran, Manila, and Colorado to Vancouver Island show us that creativity and discovery share the same pulse. Whether sculpting memory, translating storms into theater, or building networks of connection, they prove that imagination can change how we understand both the ocean and ourselves. This podcast is produced by Balad'EAU with the generous support of Ocean Networks Canada. ONC is one of Canada's major research facilities and is an initiative of the University of Victoria. It is primarily funded by the Canada Foundation for Innovation and by Fisheries and Oceans Canada. A special thank you goes to Tommy Goupil for the editing and the production, and to Andrew Lowen of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. If you'd like to hear the full interviews with our guests, check out his podcast. For this special series, each episode is offered in 2 versions. The full interview with Andrew and a narrative episode, more storytelling in style, here on Balad'EAU. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please subscribe, visit our website, and follow us on social media for updates. Your support helps us continue sharing these true stories of scientific discovery and human ingenuity. Before we go, you've heard in this episode a short excerpt of Gossip with Whales, a performance piece created by Dennis Guppa during his Art Science Fellowship at Ocean Networks Canada. Links to the full version of his work, as well as to Parvin's sculptures and installations, and to the creation of all the other remarkable fellows of this program, are available in the episode description. Dive in, explore their art, and discover how curiosity continues to echo through every piece. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep exploring the ocean, honoring its knowledge, and uncovering its secrets. It was your host, Lynn Morissette. See you next time.